20-second intro. Galactic Empire stunned. Could this really be a human fleet? Admiral Marcus's soul stood at the front of his flagship's bridge, the soft hum of the engines under his feet. He watched the wide view screen as dozens of sleek starships glided into view. Each one was painted in white and blue with glowing lights along the hull. His crew leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide with wonder. Not one person spoke for a long moment. On every face there was the same gentle hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the moment they had dreamed of. Below the bridge, the science team worked side by side, checking sensors and computers. Dr. Alina Fu scanned waveforms of the engine. Signature. These readings match old Earth records, she said softly. Her voice trembled with excitement. Lieutenant Rajiv stood beside her, his hand hovering over the console, remembering stories of Earth's golden age of exploration. Around them, engineers shared quiet smiles and whispered greetings in half a dozen languages. In that room, strangers felt like family. On the main deck, families of the crew gathered for a brief celebration. Small children pressed their faces to the transparent walls, staring at the glowing stars beyond. A mother gently held her baby, humming a lullaby from Earth. In the glow of the ship's lights, her eyes shone with pride. Her husband, a young pilot named Tess, knelt beside her and pointed at the distant fleet. Their hearts beat with the same steady rhythm, filled with wonder and warmth, far across the void. In the Grand Command Hall of the Galactic Empire, a warning beacon blinked to life. Ministers and advisors rose from their seats in alarm. Emperor. Archon sat on his high dais in silent surprise, his dark robes trailing behind his throne. Courtiers pressed forward with parchment reports and flickering hollow scrolls. They had believed humans were weak, nothing more than a long-lost myth. Now, the impossible floated before their eyes. Gasps echoed in the marble chamber as the scout's message repeated again and again. Back on the flagship, Admiral Sol tapped a button on his console. A clear, calm voice filled every corridor. "All hands," he said. "Prepare for our first greeting." The crew straightened in their uniforms. In every cabin and corridor, people paused their tasks to listen. In that single moment, they felt a deeper bond with each other. Soldiers who had trained for years set aside their drills. Nurses and medics closed their data pads, even the ship's cook, who had been preparing a simple stew, placed her ladle down and listened. A soft chime sounded on the bridge. On the view screen, a series of glowing symbols appeared. A hologram of Earth's flag unfolded, followed by simple words in the Empire's common tongue. "We come in peace." Below those words, images shifted. Children laughing by a spring, fields of golden wheat and sunlight, and people of all races sharing food and song. The room filled with gentle music. As the images played, a hush fell over every soldier, every scientist, every family member. Hope and curiosity grew hand in hand. On the observation deck of a nearby Empire cruiser, Commander Yesra watched the display through tear-bright eyes. She had served the Empire for 30 years and never had. She felt so moved. Round her, other officers gasped or covered their mouths in wonder. The images touched something deep in their hearts. Feeling they had forgotten, Yesra pressed her hand to the glass and murmured, "Perhaps we judged too quickly." In that moment, a spark of friendship was born. By the time the human fleet drifted into a holding pattern, word had spread across the stars. Citizens in distant worlds paused their daily tasks to watch the new signals. Across the Empire, old doubts and fears began to soften. In every heart that saw the gentle greeting, a question bloomed: what will these humans do next? In the silent emptiness between worlds, a new chapter of hope prepared to begin. Emperor Archon sat on his high dais in the Grand Council Hall. The tall windows let in pale starlight that danced across the polished marble floor. Around him, ministers and advisors stood in hushed clusters, their voices a soft rustle. None dared speak his name without permission. Each face held a flicker of doubt and awe, for the report spoke of humans arriving not with weapons, but with hope. A golden hala scroll hovered before Arkan, showing live feeds of the human ships. He traced the curve of a hole with his finger. He remembered old histories that called humans fragile and unskilled. Now those stories seemed like myths. A young advisor bowed and whispered, "Your Majesty, they bear our flag of peace, yet they outnumber our scouts." Arkan lifted his gaze, calm and measured. He would not rush to war without proof. In a quiet corner, Lady Marath, the chief diplomat, tapped her holopad. She drafted a summons to the human flagship. Her heart pounded at the thought of facing the Admiral. Diplomacy had long been Arkan's preferred path. She hoped to learn Earth's true intentions. Nearby, General Vec, in full uniform, clenched his jaw. He believed strength and steel kept the Empire safe. He muttered to his aide, "Prepare the battle fleet, just in case." Back on Admiral Saul's flagship, the crew felt the same tension. The bridge lights glowed soft blue as officers monitored Empire communications. Sol stood with Commander Ortiz beside him. Ortiz adjusted her uniform with care. She was ready to meet Arkan's envoy. Her training had taught her patience and respect. For ceremony, yet she felt a thrill of pride. Humanity had come so far from Earth's first flimsy rockets to this armada of hope. In the lower decks, Dr. Alina Fu and Lieutenant Rajiv reviewed cultural files. They chose art, music, and literature to share. Lena played a simple Earth melody. That spoke of friendship. Rajiv read aloud a poem about rising together. They smiled at each other, knowing these words might soften even the hardest heart. Around them, engineers passed trays of fruit and tea for the envoy's journey, each cup symbolizing Earth's offer of goodwill. Families of the crew gathered in common rooms to watch live feeds of the council hall. Children sat cross-legged on soft mats, eyes wide. A mother held her daughter close as the message showed court attendants arranging seats for the human delegation. A father brushed his son's hair back and whispered, "See, they will hear us. They will see we mean no harm." Their voices trembled with hope, the same hope that guided every human soul on this mission. Meanwhile, on distant worlds within the Empire, citizens paused daily work to hear rumors. Markets fell silent when traders spoke of the human fleet's peaceful acts on quake-hit moons. Priests in great temples offered prayers for guidance. Artists painted banners, showing human faces smiling under Earth's blue sky. A new wave of curiosity spread like wildfire, and he whispered, "Could these people be the allies we never knew we needed?" In the council hall, Lady Marith finally spoke. Her voice rang clear and steady.
Yes.
She asked the Emperor to allow a small delegation to meet the humans under a flag of truce. General Vec bristled, but did not interrupt. Arkan closed his eyes for a moment, weighing fear against possibility. At length, he nodded once. "Proceed," he said, and the hall echoed with a collective breath. Dot. On the flagship's deck, Ortiz received the encrypted reply. She read the Emperor's words aloud. "A meeting shall be held at the neutral station, Aegis 9. We come to listen." A cheer rose from the bridge crew, soft but full of joy. Sol clasped Ortiz on the shoulder and said, "This is our chance to show who we are." She held back tears of relief. As the human fleet set a new course toward Aegis 9, stars streaked past their viewports. In every heart on both sides of the void, wonder and hope bloomed together. The next meeting would shape their futures. And somewhere in the silence between worlds, a single question shone bright. Could friendship truly conquer fear? Asked ChatGPT. Admiral Marcus's soul stood on the command deck of the human flagship as it slipped into orbit around Aegis 9. The neutral station hung like a pale jewel against the void of space. Sol watched the station's windows light up with curious faces. Around him, his bridge crew waited in silence. Each person felt the weight of this moment. They were not here to fight. They were here to share hope. In every heartbeat, they carried Earth's promise of peace and help. At Sol's command, the fleet's broadcast array powered on. Holographic images filled the station's central plaza. First came human art, children painting sunsets, dancers moving like wind, gardeners tending flowers under twin suns. Que Musica soft melody played on an old violin, which shifted into voices singing in many languages. Viewers on Aegis 9 paused their tasks to watch. Some wiped away tears. Images spoke without weapons. They spoke of beauty, of laughter, and of the simple joy of being alive. Next, the human fleet showed videos of their rescue missions. On a moon called Zyphora, quake damage had left thousands without shelter. Swarms of relief drones floated. Down from human ships, carried food packets, water tanks, and medicine kits. Drones hovered over broken buildings. They lowered supplies to families huddled in dust. A young medic opened a kit and wrapped a child's arm in a bandage. The child smiled through tears. In the clip, that smile spread to his parents. Across the galaxy, hearts lifted at such tenderness. On Aegis 9's observation balconies, alien delegates pressed close to the railings. Commander Elena Ortiz watched them from the bridge's side window. She saw ministers whisper in shock and awe. She saw children among the crowd, faces glowing as they pointed at the glowing scenes. Even the station's guard drones paused there. Patrols. Ortiz felt a warm pride. Earth's history of struggle had taught her that kindness could cross any gulf. She hoped these images would soften even the hardest hearts. Below the bridge, Dr. Alina Fu and Lieutenant Rajiv shared a quiet moment. They listened to the soft applause that echoed through the ship's internal coms. Alina's eyes shone as she recalled her childhood in the floating cities of Earth. Rajiv pressed a hand to his chest and smiled. Together they had chosen which scenes to share. They knew that empathy was their greatest tool. In that calm corridor, they felt a deep bond with every human and every viewer watching them now. Across the plaza on Aegis 9, Lady Marath stood beside General Vec and other Empire leaders. Marath's voice trembled with emotion as she asked for a moment of silence after the broadcast. The crowd fell still, and one by one delegates clapped. Vec, who had prepared war plans only hours before, bowed his head in respect. A stray tear rolled down his cheek. He had spent his life defending the Empire, but never had he felt so moved by an act of mercy. In that moment, fear gave way to wonder. As the lights of the hologram faded, silence filled the plaza. Then a single voice spoke. "We wish to learn more." It carried across the station like a quiet drum. Murmurs of agreement rose up from every corner. On the flagship, Admiral Sol felt his chest tighten with joy. He turned to his crew and nodded. They had shown who they were without firing a single shot. In the hush between stars, a new chapter had begun, one written in hope, in art, and in the promise of true friendship. Ask ChatGPT. Commander Alina Ortiz stepped into the glass-walled chamber on Aegis 9, her boots clicking softly on the polished floor. Warm light filtered through tall windows that looked out into space. Across the low table sat Prime Minister Thal, his silver robes folded neatly. Between them, a small tray held cups of warm tea and simple pastries. Two translator droids hovered at each side, ready to turn every word into the Empire's tongue. Ortiz offered a gentle bow. "Prime Minister Thal," she said, voice calm and steady. Her hand rested lightly on the table. Thal inclined his head in return, eyes curious, but polite. He wore no armor or weapon harness. Today he was just a leader who wanted answers. Ortiz felt a flutter in her chest. She had trained for years for this moment. Now she would show who humanity really was. A serving officer poured amber tea from a slender pot. Steam curled toward the ceiling. Ortiz took the first sip. The flavor was soft with a hint of spice. She closed her eyes and smiled. "On Earth," she began, "we share tea to welcome friends." Thal raised an eyebrow as the droid translated. Outside the chamber, human crew and Empire envoys watched on hidden screens. Every gesture, every expression mattered. Ortiz spoke. Of Earth's long history of hardship, she told how humans built bridges after wars, how they planted forests in deserts, and how they reached out when others cried for help. She showed simple star maps of past rescue missions. The images were plain but true. Human ships guiding lost vessels, nurses treating wounded children, engineers restoring broken cities. Each story spoke louder than any weapon. Thal listened without interrupting, his hands folded on the table. Translator droid too softly replayed Ortiz's words in the grand hall outside. Ministers paused in their duties to listen. A hush fell over the corridors of power. For a moment, fear did not rule their hearts. Instead, they felt wonder. Suddenly, Ortiz's attendant tripped on a loose cable. The teapot tipped, and a few drops fell on Thal's robe. Time seemed to stop. Ortiz's face went pale. Raised a hand, brushed the drop away, and laughed a clear, gentle sound. Ortiz blinked, then laughed too. The tension broke like thin ice. Even the translator droids emitted polite chuckles as they replayed the sound. Thal smiled warmly. "Your tea is kind, and your heart is kinder," he said as the droid translated. Ortiz's eyes filled with tears of relief. She bowed again. Deeper this time. Across the table, two cultures found common ground in a spilled cup and shared laughter. When the meeting ended, Ortiz and Thal stood together, clasped hands, and looked out at the stars. In their silence, hope shone brighter than any fleet. Across the galaxy, word spread that friendship could bloom even in the coldest void. Ask ChatGPT. News of the human fleet's peaceful mission spread like sunrise across the Empire. Holofeeds on space stations, market squares, and palace courtyards showed images of human relief drones delivering water and medicine. Citizens paused there, worked to watch. In family chambers, parents held children close as scenes of kindness unfolded. Above distant cities, broadcast towers lighted up with the human flag and the simple words, "We come in peace." In every world, people felt a warm glow in their hearts. Hope broke through old fears, and many wondered if this gentle armada was the true strength the galaxy needed. On busy trading posts, merchants whispered about the humans' swift aid on quake-scarred moons. Traders paused their haggling to share word of smiling doctors and food packets. Some feared these newcomers might be spies, but most felt curiosity outweighed doubt. Out in temple halls, priests spoke of mercy and compassion, inviting followers to pray for unity. Artists painted banners of human hands offering bread to alien hands. Children sketched scenes of two ships side by side, one Earth blue, one Empire silver, flying together toward new horizons. Across the Empire, the melody of peace drifted on the solar winds. The capital, courtiers debated in lavish halls. Some high lords insisted on caution, urging the emperor to keep strong defenses. Others spoke softly of alliance, saying that friendship might bring more safety than armaments. Scholars wrote essays on Earth's history of rebuilding after its own wars. Poets composed verses about hope rising in the loneliness of space. Even the emperor's advisors, once silent and grim, found themselves moved by the images of children laughing under human care. In this turning tide of opinion, the question no longer was, are they a threat, but can they be our allies? On the flagship's bridge, Admiral Marcus's soul watched these shifting winds of opinion through secure channels. He laid out a plan to deepen trust. "Let us invite a small group of young cadets from the Empire," he told Commander Ortiz. "Show them our ship, our people, our lives. Let them see that we are friends." Ortiz nodded. She saw the wisdom in his words. A guided tour would turn vague stories into real memories. Sol sent his order, and soon a delegation of 5 cadets received personal invitations. Their eyes went wide when they read the embossed seal of Earth's fleet. Preparations began in every corridor of the human flagship. Crew members polished metal railings and prepared humble gift packages of Earth fruit and books. Dr. Alina Fu arranged a short lecture on human culture in the neutral lounge. Lieutenant Rajiv rehearsed a greeting speech in the Empire's tongue. Families of the crew volunteered to bake simple treats and record welcome messages from children on Earth. In cabins and labs, people worked side by side, united by excitement. Every detail, from lighting to music playlists, aimed to make the cadets feel at home. In each small act, the warmth of humanity shone through. On the day of the visit, the cadets boarded the flagship at a quiet docking port. Ortiz greeted them with a friendly bow and offered them cups of Earth tea. Their faces were nervous but eager. As they walked the corridors, they marveled at the human designs, simple chairs made of recycled wood, murals of ocean waves and waves, and a small garden under artificial sky. The galley. They tasted fresh bread and sweet fruit that had grown on Earth's farms. They listened to children's voices from a live video feed. Slowly, their hands unclenched and their eyes brightened with wonder. At the end of their tours, the cadets stood on the observation deck as the human fleet drifted against the stars. One of them, a cadet named Lyris, spoke softly. "I never knew kindness could look so strong." Ortiz smiled as the other cadets nodded. In that silent moment, the bond between species felt unbreakable. Across the galaxy, news of this simple visit spread faster than any battle cry. Fear gave way to friendship, doubt to delight, and a new chapter of hope opened wide. Ask ChatGPT. A sudden crackle ran through the comm channels of both fleets. One moment, Admiral Saul's flagship was sending kind greetings, and the next, all screens went dark. On the Empire side, stations blinked as messages failed to reach the capital. Crew members on both sides froze in their seats. Hearts pounded with worry. Was this attack or a terrible glitch? In the silence, fear slipped in. Yet even in that fear, hands reached out for help, for answers, for each other. Deep in the engineering bay of the human flagship, Dr. Alina Fu studied the failing signals. She pressed her palm against a cold console and frowned. The readings showed strange pulses of energy waves that bent light and warped space. She tapped Lieutenant Rajiv's shoulder. "Look at this," she said. Rajiv leaned in, his eyes widened. "I've never seen anything like it," he whispered. The two scientists felt a surge of both dread and curiosity. They knew they must work fast. Across the void, on the Empire Research Station, Lady Marith paced before a bank of Hala displays. She had summoned Dr. Joran, the Empire's chief physicist, to help. When Joran arrived, she guided him through the data feed from the human fleet. Together, they compared notes. Joran adjusted his robes and said, "If we combine our scanners, we might pinpoint the source." Mareth nodded. "Send a secure link." In that moment, diplomat and scientist set aside protocol. They opened their doors to each other. Commander Elena Ortiz convened a joint team on the neutral station. In a simple meeting room, human and Empire officers sat around a circular table. Ortiz placed a star map in the center. She pointed to a point of swirling white light near the system's edge. "This is where the pulses begin," she said. General Vec leaned forward, his stern face softened by concern. He added, "Our ship's loss comes when they neared that point." Ortiz met his eyes. "Let us go together and see what is happening." He nodded, and the table fell silent. Agreement had won over doubt. Within hours, 2 small vessels left. The station, one marked with Earth's blue and white, the other bearing the Empire's silver crest. Dr. Alina Fu and Dr. Joran stood side by side in the science lab as the ships glided toward the anomaly. The air shimmered with electric tension. Outside the viewport, stars flickered like frightened fireflies. Alina felt her pulse quicken. Joran placed a steady hand on the console. "We will solve this," he said. She smiled, grateful. In that silent bridge, 2 minds joined as one. When the ships reached the edge of the anomaly, the view was breathtaking. A swirling cloud of glowing particles spun in impossible patterns. Waves of violet and green light pulsed outward, bending the beams of their scanners. Ortiz, watching from the command deck, held her breath. Dr. Fu activated a joint sensor array. Numbers flooded their screens. As Alina and Joran worked in harmony, sharing commands, comparing readings, they began to map the energy field. Each data point stitched their teamwork tighter. Slowly, the strange pulses weakened under their combined analysis. The energy patterns matched those of a rare cosmic event, echo of a dying star. Dr. Fu let out a quiet laugh of relief. Joran placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Your people's technology and ours made the answer clear," he said. Ortiz turned to General Vec. "We did this together." Vec exhaled and allowed a rare smile. "Together," he echoed. Astounded. In that shared victory, every doubt they once held felt far away. Back at the station, broadcasts showed both fleets once, again linked by clear messages. Crews cheered as their screens lit up. Alarms were silenced and replaced by chimes of success. On distant worlds, citizens who had watched in worry now smiled and applauded. The story of the joint mission spread faster than any war cry ever could. In every heart, hope grew stronger. People whispered that cooperation was mightier than fear. And in the quiet between stars, a new bond was forged, one built on trust. Got it. On science and on the promise of a brighter tomorrow, ask ChatGPT. The Imperial Senate chamber was filled with golden light from tall stained glass windows. Emperor Archon sat at the high dais, his robes flowing like quiet waves. Senators lined the semicircle, faces turned toward a single hollow banner that read Treaty of New Dawn. The room was still, as though every breath had paused for this moment. Courtiers held their breath. Outside, distant crowds awaited news. In that hush, hope filled the air. No one spoke yet, but every heart felt the weight of possibility. Today, the Empire would decide if it would stand by fear or step forward in friendship. A young senator rose from his seat. His voice trembled. With emotion as he spoke of worlds torn by loneliness and despair, he remembered hearing tales of human kindness on quake-hit moons and seeing art from Earth in every market. "Let us choose peace," he said. "Let us choose the strength of friendship over the strength of steel." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Some senators wiped tears from their eyes. Even General Vec, once fierce and wary, nodded slowly. No. The old walls of doubt were crumbling, replaced by a bright light of hope that no weapon could match. Emperor Arcan raised his hand, calling for silence.
Oh?
He spoke softly, his voice steady and kind. "We have seen what these humans bring, not conquest, but care, not war, but wonder." Behind him, the holobanner shifted to show images of children, laughing under human care. Arcan looked down at the senators. "By this vote, we choose a new path." He gestured to the crystal console before him. A single touch, and the resolution would pass. The chamber held its breath once more this time, in eager anticipation. The console glowed as Arcan tapped it. Green light spread across the hollow banner. "Resolution adopted," the droid announcer intoned. A cheer rose like thunder. In the front rows, Marcus Sol and Alina Ortiz appeared in hologram form. Their uniforms gleamed in the golden hall. Arcan beckoned them to join him on the dais. The human officers bowed respectfully. In that moment, two great powers stood side by side, united by a choice for peace. Across the galaxy, distant stations lit up in celebration as news of the treaty spread at light speed. On Aegis 9, a grand ceremony awaited. Flags of Earth and the Empire fluttered in gentle artificial breeze under the station's dome. Marcus Sol and Emperor Archon signed the Treaty of New Dawn on soft parchment. Their pens moved together as music rose from hidden speakers. Behind them, diplomats from both sides held hands and smiled. Ortiz and Thal exchanged a quiet nod. Children from many worlds stood on a raised platform, throwing petals in the air. In every corner of the station, people wept tears of joy. The ceremony was simple but perfect, a promise sealed not in blood but in hope. As celebrations spread, fleets drifted in formation around Aegis 9. Human and Empire ships marked the sky with blue and silver lights. On the human flagship, Dr. Alina Fu leaned against the viewport, eyes shining. Lieutenant Rajiv joined. Huron slipped an arm around her shoulders. "We did this," he whispered. Alina smiled and laid her head against his arm. "Together, we did this." In the science lab, Dr. Joran and his team toasted with cups of tea. Across the station, officers shared meals and laughter. In every corner, walls between species melted away. In the days that followed, trade routes reopened, relief missions expanded, and joint research began. Children from Earth and Empire schools exchanged letters and drawings. Artists painted murals of fleets flying together under twin suns. Priests spoke of unity in temple halls. On distant moons, survivors of past disasters found new friends. Everywhere, people asked the same question: What wonders will we build together next? And in the silent stars above, a gentle light streamed across the void, carrying the promise of a brighter tomorrow for all? Asked ChatGPT.